Okay, let's see. Stephanie, can you read us the essential question? Perfect. And Vanessa, can you read us the I can statement?
I can write the standard form of a circle or an ellipse from the general.
Perfect. Okay. So what we're going to put together is last week we worked on just exploring what does the graph of a circle and what does the graph of an ellipse look like. Those were two of the four conic sections. Okay. We're going to put together the idea of completing the square that we did with quadratics with our circles and our ellipses. Okay, our circle and our ellipse equations. It's probably likely we're going to try to introduce the hyperbola tomorrow. I just wanted to make sure we got some paper notes done that we started kind of working through this part because we're going to quiz on it later this week. Okay. All right. So our steps of completing the square are going to act a little bit differently because we're not using this to solve it. We're using it to create one of the standard forms of the equation, which you see both the standard forms there. We saw those both in the Desmos activities that we were doing last week. Okay, we did a lot of copy and paste with them last week. Okay. All right, so first thing we're going to do, instead of subtracting the constant last, we're going to subtract the constant first. Okay. Then we're going to regroup the x and the y. I'm going to call it regroup. Just like we just did with the exponents, how we moved the x's, the bases that were the same together, we're going to move all the things with x together. We're going to move all the things with y together. Okay. Then we are going to factor out, if it has it, the leading coefficient. And we might factor that, we might factor something out of an x and out of a y. Okay. Then we're going to add in plus blank and set up what I remember we called cheating factoring. So we're going to set up the cheating factoring. Okay. Or basically it was setting up the square of the binomial is what that really was. All right. Then, so from here on, it's exactly kind of the same as what we were doing before. Then we're going to divide the middle term by 2. And we're going to square it. And then obviously we simplify anything else we need to simplify, but that's the gist of completing the square. So when we were doing this with solving, we completed the square one time. Okay. And really, when we're solving a quadratic, the two things we typically go to are let's do factoring with magic x, the greatest common factor, or let's do the quadratic formula. We can do every single one of the we can do every single quadratic equation with those two. We really don't need completing the square. So the purpose of showing you this is to show you that we have to use completing the square. It's the only method to be able to get this equation of a circle from standard form or from general form into standard form. So standard form is when it looks like this, when we have that h and k and the r squared. Okay. And general form is where we have it where it definitely doesn't look like we can graph it or draw the graph of it right from the equation or identify the center and the radius. Okay. So we're going to write the equation in the standard form and we're going to identify center and radius. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this to the other side. And actually, I'm going to do two things at once. Okay, we're in Algebra 2. Even if with the width trig class, we should be able to do two things at once. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to regroup the x's and the y's. So I'm saving myself a line of work. Okay, so I'm going to say it's x squared. I'm going to bring the 26 up front, so 26x. And then I'm going to say y squared minus 2y. And then I'm going to subtract the 166 to the other side. Okay, let's look at the next step. Okay, it says we are going to factor out the leading coefficient. Is there a leading coefficient in front of x squared or y squared? No, so I get to skip that step this time. So now it says I have to add in the plus blank and I have to add in the cheating factoring. Okay, so I'm going to go another line since I wasn't smart about how I drew that line. So x squared 26x plus blank plus y squared minus 2y plus blank equals negative 166. I just put 2 blanks on the left. How many blanks do you think I need on the right? 2. So whatever you do to the left, you do to the right. Okay? Okay, I'm going to set up the cheating factoring at the same time. So I have x something squared plus y something squared equals something. Do you see how we're starting to create this form right here that we need? That's how we're creating it, is with completing the square. Okay, because that's the form we need in order to read the center and the radius. Okay, let's go to the next set. Now it says we're going to divide the middle term by 2. So I'm going to take this 26 and I'm going to divide it by 2. What do I get when I divide 26 by 2? 13. And I keep it positive because there's a plus sign there. So plus 13. Okay, and remember your hint is hiding right here. If you've done this setup, your hint is right there. What's 13 squared? You can use the chart. You can use a calculator. I don't care. What do we get? 169. So I put that on the left and on the right. Let's go purple. All right, I'm going to do the same thing with the y now. Okay, I'm going to divide the middle term by 2. So what's negative 2 divided by 2? Negative 1. And you have to carry the sign with it. All right, and then what's negative 1 squared? 1. Good, to both sides. Okay. The only thing I have left to do on this line is to add these numbers up, which at first I thought, oh, we could use a calculator, but I don't think it's that bad. What's negative 166 and positive 169? 3 plus 1 is 4. So that wasn't so bad. Okay. That really wasn't that bad. And I don't have to solve. I don't have to get down to the i's. I don't have to plus minus square root both sides. I don't have to do any of that. I'm done. That's the standard form of a circle. Okay. Let's talk about the center and the radius. So remember, when we're going in or out of parentheses, what do we have to do with our sign? Change it, right? So what's the 13 going to become? Negative 13. What's the 1 going to become? Positive 1. All I did was read my, it's technically h and k, but you always know your h is with your x and your y, your k is with your y. So I always think of it as x and y. Okay. All right. I know that this right here is my radius squared. So if radius squared is 4, what's the radius? 2. On this particular case, I don't do plus minus because it doesn't make sense to have a negative radius. I can't graph a negative radius. Okay. So we can only graph a positive radius. So you don't need to worry about plus minus on the radius. Okay. All right. So I want you to see if you can try one on your own. Same model. Okay. Example 2, it should be nice. All right. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. See if you can step through, use this one as a model for it. Okay. See if you can step through example 2 all by yourself. I'll leave that up there so if you can see it, the whole thing. Okay, so everybody's trying example 2 before I go and we try to do ellipses next. Okay, yeah. I'll take the last one. Take about 30 more seconds on your own, see how far you can get. Make sure if you're all the way to the bottom, you can identify the center and the radius. Okay, let's take a look together. All I did was move my 149 to the other side by subtracting it, and then I rearranged my x's together and y y's together. Everybody good? You all got that part? So I'm ready to add in my plus blanks and set up my cheating factoring. Do I have a leading coefficient I need to worry about? No. So in this case, no. All right, so we're going to go x squared minus 22x plus blank plus y squared minus 16y plus blank equals negative 149. How many blanks do we put on the right side? 2. Good. And then I'm also setting up the cheating factoring. So x something squared plus y something squared equals some number. All right. What am I supposed to do to the 22 now? Divide it by 2. So it's negative 22 divided by 2. Good. And then what do I do to the negative 11? Square it. What do we get? Good. All right. We're going to take this 16 now and do what to it? Divide it by 2. What do we end up with? Negative 8. What do I do to the negative 8? Square it. What do we get? 64 to both sides. Good. All right. I don't have the answers to this today, so hopefully you guys can help me out. What's 149? Negative 149, positive 121, and 64. Everybody good with 36? Perfect. Okay. Then we're going to identify the center and the radius. What was your center that you got? 11.8. Everybody good with 11.8? Okay, perfect. All right, my radius, that's the radius squared, right? So I have to take the square root of that. What's the radius? 6. Okay, so not so bad, right? We've really worked up to the fact that we've made this really easy. Okay. All right. Let's take a look now at ellipses. Okay, so remember, this is what an ellipsis is supposed to look like. We have some denominators under there. We know that they're the length of our major and our minor squared, right? And then it's always supposed to be equal to 1 to be an ellipse, okay? Which I could technically do with the circles, because circles we know are just ellipses that have the major and the minor axis the same. All right, so what we're going to do in this one is we're going to write the standard form of the ellipse, identify the center and the length of the major and the length of the minor, okay? All right, so I'm going to start it the same way I started the circle, okay? I'm going to rearrange and I'm going to move the constant to the right side, okay? So I'm moving that over, so that's going to be negative 52. And then I'm going to have 4x squared minus 8x plus y squared plus 16y. Okay, I am looking for a leading coefficient. Okay. And all I want to do is I just want to look at it for the x's and then for the y's separately. Okay. So in the x's, what would technically be my leading coefficient? 4. When we were solving these, remember how we divided everything by that leading coefficient? That's the step we're not going to do. We're going to bring it out like a greatest common factor. Okay. So I'm going to go 4 parentheses x squared. I'm dividing by 4. I'm dividing that by 4. I get negative 2. And then 2x. And then we're going to put in our plus blank. Okay. For the y's, do I have a leading coefficient? No. It's just y, so I'm just going to keep it as y squared plus 16y plus blank equals the negative 52 plus blank plus blank. Okay. I'm going to set up my cheating factoring. It's going to look a little different, okay? Everything, if I have a coefficient in front here, I have to drop that down. So it's going to be 4 something squared and then plus y something squared equals something. Don't know what that number is yet, but we'll get there. Okay. There is a little bit of a catch as we're doing this, okay? The initial steps are the same, okay? All right, what are we supposed to do to the middle term? Divide by 2. So what's negative 2 divided by 2? Negative 1. Good. What are we supposed to do to the negative 1? Square it. Good. Here's the problem. Technically, that's not just a 4, right? Don't I have to, what the algebra would say is you have to distribute this 4 in. So what's 4 times 4? 16. Really, that 4 is a 16 because of this 4 here. I have to deal with the fact, that I have to take this, and I have to multiply them together. That's what's going to go out here. So that's going to be a 16 out there. Okay, that's why it's not exactly the same. Okay, and that's a little bit of a twist on the ellipse. We don't see that much on the circle, but on the ellipse we do. Okay, let's try the next one. So what am I supposed to do to the 16? Divide it by 2. Good. What's 16 divided by 2? 8. Good. All right, what am I supposed to do to the 8? Square it. What do I end up with? Do I need to worry about the leading coefficient thing? No. Okay, so I'm not worried about the leading coefficient thing, so that means I just get to write the 64 down. Okay. All right. You all hopefully have Desmos in front of you or something. Do the arithmetic on the right side there for me. I'll give you like 30 seconds. Do the arithmetic. Negative 52 plus 16 plus 64. What do we get? Anybody get it? Negative 28. Do we all agree with that? Yeah? Everybody good with that? That's what I heard. What's wrong?
How did you get 4?
How did I?
Negative 1 squared is 1.
It is 1. Thank you. I don't know what I did there. Apparently it's Monday. Okay. That's where we were confused. Thank you. Thank you for stopping and saying that I did it wrong. Because I did do it wrong. All right. Let's start there from there again. What's negative 1 squared? 1. And then what's 1 times 4? That should be a 4 in there. That's going to change things significantly, right? So this, that's not what I wanted to scratch out. I wanted to highlight. This times this, I just erased everything. That's always good. Let's see if it'll come back. There we go. Times this is that. All right, everybody good now? All right, let's try adding it again, okay? So it looks like I've got 68 and negative 52. What do we get for that? 60? 16. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So my brain totally went to the 4 on that, didn't it? On the where I was supposed to have the 1. Okay. What is an ellipse supposed to be equal to? 1. So in order to get it into standard form, I have to be equal to 1. Am I equal to 1 yet? No. So the secret to getting it equal to 1 is either I would have to subtract 15, which would be weird. Or don't I have to divide by that number? So I'm going to divide everything by 16. Okay. So this is how the major and the minor appear. Is right here. Okay. How many times is 4 going to 16? 4 times. So I know that I'm canceling there and getting 4. So I have x minus 1 squared over 4. This one, there's nothing to cancel, right? So it's just y plus 8 squared over 16 equals, what's 16 divided by 16? 1. Good. Okay. I was also asked to find the center, the major, and the minor length, right? So center. Okay, what's the center of this thing? 1, negative 8. Good, I like it, right? Swap the sign, because they're in and out of parentheses. Okay. My major and my minor. Okay, I need the length of them. Remember, these are the numbers squared. The length of them is twice it, right? It's twice whatever that value is. Which one is the major this time, the x or the y? The y, because it has the bigger number, right? That's what we discovered on Friday. All right, so we know that y is the major. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square root of 16, which is what? 4, and I'm going to multiply it by 2. What's the 4 times 2? 8. So the length of my major is 8. I really should have probably written 2 times square root of 16, right? If I'm doing the length of if I'm being specific about it. All right. My minor has to be under the x this time because that's my smaller number. So I'm going to do twice the square root of 4. So what is the square root of 4? 2. And then doubling it would give me 4 is the total length of the minor. With that, I'd have enough to graph it. I'm not going to worry about you calculating the foci. Okay? Foci for our purpose is going to be nice to know instead of need to know. Okay? All right. We have one more here. Okay? And plenty of time today. Here's what I want you to do. Okay? We're going to step this one. I'm not going to have you do the whole thing all at once. We're going to do it in little parts. Okay? So I want you to rearrange it. Okay? And then I want you to see if you can factor out the leading coefficients. That's all I want you to do is rearrange it and factor out the leading coefficients. So I'll give you a minute to do just those 2 things. Okay, let's take a look at what we have. Okay, so I did my rearrange part. Real good with my rearrange part, and I moved my 9 over to the other side. All right, what was my leading coefficient for the x's? 9. Okay, so I'm going to go 9 parentheses x squared plus what? 2x plus blank. Okay. All right, what is my leading coefficient for my y's? 4. Good. So 4 y squared plus, how many times did 4 go into 72? 18 y plus blank equals -9 plus blank plus blank. Okay, we're going to set up our cheating factoring. That was supposed to be done at the same time we add in our blanks. So I'm drawing a 9 parentheses x something squared plus 4 parentheses y something squared. Well, just in that line, we can start seeing our center forming. Okay. All right, here's what I want you to do. So we're going to see if you can do it better than Mrs. Ballard did. All right. All right, what's our next step? What are we supposed to do next? Divide by 2. So remember, you divide by 2, you square it, and then remember whatever number is here, you have to multiply by that number on the outside, and that's what goes in the blank. So just do that part. Don't go any further than that. Just try to get those 2 lines filled in. Okay. About 20 seconds. Just those 2 lines and stop. Okay, let's look at it together and make sure we've got it right before we keep going. Okay, so what am I supposed to do to the 2? Divide it by 2. What do we get? 1. What am I supposed to do to the 1? Square it. What do you get? 1. And then I have 1 times 9 is what? That's what goes on the outside. Okay? So we're tweaking just that little bit, right? Okay, what are we supposed to do to the 18? Divide by 2. What do you get? 9. Okay, and then what am I supposed to do to the 9? Square it. What do you get? 81. Oh, good. 81 times 4. What'd you get? What was it? 324. Perfect. Okay. Good news is the 9's canceled and we get a 324 over here, right? You will have access to at least a 4-function calculator, right? So please use a calculator for these. I didn't go and pull anything that was the numbers were nice. I just used a generator to do it for me this morning. So, all right. Now, our last bit of turning this into an ellipse. Okay, so this is like the last step before we can read the center and the major and the minor. What does this have to be equal to? 1. So how do I get it equal to 1? What's the process? Divide. Good. So dividing everything by 324. All right, you're going to help me with the calculator work. So I don't have mine up and running this morning. Okay, so let's see. How many times does 9 go into 324? 36? Okay, and then how many times does 4 go into 324? 80. Oh, look at nice square numbers, aren't they, though, huh? That was really nice of them. Okay, if it's not nice square numbers, it's ugly. All right, so we've got x plus 1 squared over 36 plus y plus 9 squared over 81 equals 1. Okay, we're going to find our center and the length of our major and the length of our minor. All right, what is the center? -1, -9, everybody good? Change it, right? Okay. Is our major our x or our y this time? Y. Why is it y? The bigger number. And it happened to be the 2 examples I picked. Both were y. I wasn't choosing very carefully when I pulled this out. I wanted the second example to have the lead coefficient on both of them. That's what was most important to me. So it happens to be our majors, our y again. It won't always be that way. So we're going to do double the square root, right? To find the length of our major. So what is the square root of 81? 9. 2 times 89 is 18. Good. And then our minor, I'm going to do 2 times the square root of 36. So what's the square root of 36? 6, and 2 times 6 is 12. So the length of our major is 12. Okay. It was fun. It wasn't hard. It's just we combine things together differently today, right? Than we have in the past. Okay. We combined like 4 different things we've learned in a different way. All right. So I tried not to make the examples a ton of examples today. You do need to practice outside of class, you guys. You have to. You don't have to do the entire assignment, right? Practice what you need. I made like 5 of each problem. Okay. It happens to be a worksheet. I couldn't get it. Desmos was not doing Delta Math was not doing what I needed it to do. So this was the best way to go to get it with the way we needed it. So practice a couple of circles, practice a couple of ellipses. Okay. The answers are there. So you can make sure you're getting your equations right. It didn't ask you for the center and the major and the minor and that stuff, but I would just do it just to practice it just on my own, because that way I'm ready for a quiz when Mrs. Ballard might ask that question. Okay. All right. You've got about 7 minutes left. So you have time to open that up and maybe practice a problem. Okay. Other than that, the time is yours today. Okay. Notice, I think I put it on there. We're going to do a quiz on it on Friday. Okay. And we're going to probably do the weekly skills check on Thursday, just so we aren't having to do those 2 things on top of each other this week. Okay. So that's coming up.